This is not the test you're having. It's last semester. So don't worry about artist title date. But some of the other is something you'd want to know. On your test, I will put the vocabulary first. The vocabulary will be worth points and will be multiple choice. The answers on the quizzes are very, very close to the multiple choice answer. I don't try to confuse you. You may have to think about it a little, but I won't, there's no tricks, okay? So I'm going to put the vocab first. And the reason I'm going to do that is because then when you go down to write the comments, it'll be fresh in your head. And a good test technique would be to go up to the comment, the vocab, and double check a word you might be able to use. So I thought it might be better for you guys just to do the vocab multiple choice first. That's usually about half the test. And then the other half is applying your visual literacy. Now, you won't have to have ATD worth 1 point each, but what I will ask you to do is to identify the symbols and give their 1 point for each symbol, or write a comment that demonstrates your visual literacy, a complete sentence. Now, one thing that I have had in the past is people will identify the symbol, but not identify the meaning, which, I mean, I can see the symbol. So they might go, endures night, death, and the devil, you know, dog, skull, horse, hourglass. And I'm like, yeah. Anything you write is something that I can see just by looking at it. You don't get points for it. So you have to say the dog equals loyalty. The horse equals power. The hourglass equals, you know, the passing of time. I don't have one right answer for those. In other words, if you say the dog equals loyalty, our faith, or even steadfastness, those words. So, you know, that's the reason it's not multiple choice. The dog equals faithfulness. That might not be the first word that comes to mind for you. You may have a word that means that. So that's the reason I'm doing it that way, okay? So if you have to name a symbol, you have to tell me what it means. If I add, that's 1 point for, like, if I said name 3 symbols and identify what they mean, you'd get 1 point for each. If I ask you to write a sentence to demonstrate your visual literacy or to apply your vocab, they have to be complete sentences, not bullets, and they're worth 2 points each, okay? You cannot use the same word over and over again. Right now, I can't, this piece shows semiotics. This piece shows semiotics. It's like, that doesn't really show me that you learned anything. So you could say, when I see the dog and horse together is a metonymic code for the power of faithfulness. The hourglass and death is a metonymic, or the hourglass and the figure that looks decaying is a metonymic code for death. Like, you can use those from part 2 for part 1. So if you see a condensed code, or you say this symbol signifies this symbol connotes this symbol, the denotation is. So if you find that some of those semiotic words would help you to write a sentence, then that would be a good way to practice for this. Now, here's what it looks like. You might see a picture of this and see Albert Durer's Night, Death, and the Devil. And then the question would be, you know, identify 3 symbols and give their meanings. Then I'd come down here, you see it. This is another test. It's not the one you're getting. So it's like interpret 3 things and give their meaning. It might be, what is the context of this piece? Now remember, content is what's in the piece. Text is what's going on in the world or the artist's life. Like a word in context, you see the words around it to understand the word. In this one, the context would be civil rights movement in the context of the Black Panthers and Martin Luther King. Okay, so you might get a question like that.
So like the overall idea is like the context for the, you know, the content.
Yeah, okay, that's good. Context is what's going on in the artist's life or the world at the time, and then the concept is the idea. And those are actually words on the test. Content is what's in the piece. Like a table of contents tells you what's in the book. Content is what's in the piece. Context is like the time made, what's going on in the artist's life, what's going on around the image. So for instance, the Van Eyck's wedding portrait where the lady in green is patting her stomach and looks pregnant. Well, in the context of the time, she wouldn't have been pregnant. If people did not have sex out of they did not have sex out of wedlock and get pregnant and then get married and do a painting about it, right? They'd be too ashamed. Context of this time period, she would not be showing she was pregnant when she got married. So that would say, well, I know that this isn't a contemporary piece, or the context of this piece is in the context of the civil rights movement, the context of the race to the moon. That's the context. The concept is how come you can send a guy to the moon, but you can't take care of poverty. And so the idea, concept. Okay.
Okay, so, thank you.
If you go back through your quizzes, Joba, when the quizzes are locked, can you still see the questions but just not take the quiz? Or can you not see the questions at all?
Let me check right now.
Okay, because those quizzes that you've been taking, they're not random at all. Those quizzes were mini tests. And if you can go through and answer the quiz questions, the question on the test won't be much different from it. On test, I kind of like.
Yeah, you can check it. Like, yeah, you can still see the answers you put in. You can still see the questions.
Cool. So yeah, if you go through your quizzes, those are mini tests. And if it's on the test, and if it's not on the study guide and it's not in a quiz, it's not on the test. And I double check that. So, we have so like you might see something like this. I would say a Brancusi kiss. You don't even care about the date. Write one intelligent sentence demonstrating your visual literacy by applying what you have learned. So on this one, you could say, well, a square means stability. And so it's a stable relationship. Or you could say their arms make an equal sign showing that they're equal. Their eyes make one eye showing that they see things as one.
So we are going to need to know the name of the painting, the artist, and the date?
No, I've changed that because,
okay.
Yeah, because, I think sometimes teachers make you look up useless things. And I was thinking, really, if like you should know these artists, but the truth is, you could look this up on your phone. They're so famous, you could do a search on your phone. So I decided that that's the kind of trivial information you don't really need to carry in your head since it's in your phone. Isn't that a relief? That makes it so much easier.
It is, especially with names and dates and paintings and like doing matches with them and stuff. That's a big load off.
But if you were at UVS, if you had transferred at VCU in the art history and art appreciation, you have to memorize 150 slides, artist, title, date. And I just remember stuff like that. So I'm not saying that all of the you'll have the same images. I can do this. So easy. That one we'll have that one on the test. We'll have that one on the test. It's super, super famous. That one, because you can do it. This one, This one will be on the test. This one may or may not be on the test. I think this one's too difficult. I'll substitute another for that one. So you should just be able to say, not just there's electricity in their bodies. You have to think for yourself and say, well, why would he show these figures like this? Like, what's the reason for it? So if I can see it and your sentence just describes something that anybody could see, you wouldn't get points for it. So let's see. Let's go on down through here. Now, this one will be on the test. All right. And you know that the statue is located just in Richmond, right? Do you know what inspired the artist to make the piece? That one might not have been obvious. Anybody? This artist is very famous. He was chosen to paint President Obama's portrait. He's an internationally famous Black gay guy. And so, he's part of this group of people who have been marginalized a lot, like a lot of racism, homophobia against him. He grew up, with all of that. And so he wants to show mostly strong Black men as something powerful and not like threatening, right? So he had this big show at the Virginia Museum. It was gorgeous. It was amazing. I mean, I'm hard to impress, and I was blown away by Kehinde Wiley's piece. But when he had the show at the Virginia Museum, he walked down Monument Avenue, and he's a New York City artist who also works in Japan and in Europe. And he said he was kind of shocked to see the Confederate statues on Monument Avenue. And he said, as a man walking around in brown skin, that he just, as an outsider looking in, it made him very uncomfortable. And so he thought, well, instead of criticizing it or protesting it or wanting to take it down, maybe we need new symbols, and we need new symbols of power that aren't so one guy in charge, but rather, the power of a common person. So what specifically inspired the artist to make this piece was the Confederate statues on Monument Avenue, which I thought was kind of cool. Then that the museum then bought this sculpture. I know the lawyer who represents the museum, and she is pretty much a 3%er oath keeper, military white lady, very, very conservative. And she said people were just clutching their pearls when the head of the museum said, we're going to raise several $1 million and install this right in front of the museum. And she said, we're going to lose so much money. People are going to stop donating. People are clutching their pearls. And I just, there's some points which you just don't argue with people. Well, it turned out that more and more people have come to the museum than they ever had before. More diverse people are coming to the museum and saying it's way more welcoming when they see something like this. So I thought it was kind of interesting that she predicted doom and gloom and it didn't happen. Okay, so now here, when you see these questions, let me see if I can show you what the answers look like. It failed. Okay, but see what you'll do is then it'll say, here's this word, multiple choice, what does it mean? And it's just that simple, okay? So each one of these would either have a definition after it or a word to complete. I am going to give you, you don't have cognitive panic. That you will have to know the code on this. What metonymic code? What do you think it would be? Anybody? What kind of semiotic code? You better figure that out.
Metonymic?
Okay, it's kind of metonymic. You make associations with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But how about when you have a whole lot of associations? Okay, here's something that will help you a lot. A displaced code is when something from another area gets put into it. Okay, like sex gets put into Skittles. Okay, that's a displaced code. You might also have, usually it's something taboo. And so when you have something from somewhere else that you kind of stick into the piece, and it wouldn't be something that you would normally connect. Like if it was lingerie and sex, I get it. But if it's Toucan Sam nose and sex, that doesn't work. So a displaced code is where you take a meaning from somewhere else and slip it in, and it's usually taboo. Like taboo is no, not good. Oh, we don't speak about it. And the reason they do that is because we don't speak about it, talk about it, or think about it, they can kind of hide it. So if, talking about sex or having pictures of genitals is taboo, then they might slide it in and put it there so that unconsciously you're shocked by it or surprised, or, it registers. So this could be a displaced code, because racism, it's funny, racism is kind of taboo to talk about. People are very uncomfortable talking about it. And so to put, something like somebody who died in Minneapolis, what, 150 years later? I'm not doing my math. And then to put it on a Confederate statue, that's, a lot of people who were more traditional were really offended, because they felt like, you have this history that should be upheld, and then you have this guy on the street who was killed, and you put that together and you put racism on top of the Confederacy. That would normally be really taboo out. So that's a displaced code. You could also say it was a condensed code. A condensed code is where there's lots and lots and lots and lots of meanings, but there's so many that only a few people might a small group would understand it. For instance, Tyreek's clothing in his self-portrait. Tyreek is wearing a certain kind of clothing and a certain kind of chain, and he's got a certain Playboy, and he's got a certain kind of boots that are tied or untied a certain kind of way. Now, to somebody who wasn't into local culture and didn't know a designer and didn't know what Playboy was and didn't know whether or not you wear Tim's or some other brand. Me, I wear red Tim's all the time. But, like unlaced Tim's might be a code. You're a certain kind of people. Just like, if I think of somebody wearing pink and green, I think that they may be, what's the word for people who wear pink and green? They're like really straight white people. Can't remember the word for it. So this could be a condensed code. For instance, Joba, are you US born? Did I ask you that before?
Yeah, I'm US born. My parents were originally born in Nigeria, but I'm US born.
Yeah, Nigeria is a beautiful place. Temi was saying to me at one point that, if you're not from this area and you don't know about American history and you're from another part of the world, this is like, does not make a lot of sense. So a condensed code is that there's so many layers of associations and meanings that only a few people could know about it. All right. So this could either be a displaced code, racism projected on top of a Confederate statue, or it could be a condensed code. You'd have to know what the statue meant, what Robert E. Lee meant, what BLM meant, who this guy was, who these people were. Okay, does that make sense, Joby? Did I over-explain it too much?
Oh no, you're fine. That was good.
Okay, good. So this is what the test will look like. It's not the test that we'll have, but it'll just be like one word on the question, and then it'll be multiple choice. When you get to the, let me go up, sorry. Vocab will be first. You don't have to have artist, title, date, but the quiz details do say first this will happen. You will have this many questions for your vocab. Next, you'll see pictures. So if you have just double check the details because it'll tell you exactly what to expect. Yeah, good. Step she. All right. If you, if you have any accommodations, please email me. We can work with that. I do have it timed on Honor Lock. You won't be able to use scratch paper. I hate going back on my word, but I just thought that through a little more. Let's see, you will need your ID. Let's see, any questions? Explain format. The test will be up from Thursday to Monday, which means that we can still kind of connect on Wednesday and have time. The test will be timed so that you should be able to comfortably do it. I want to say, I haven't counted the questions. Usually, I would say about 40 questions is what to expect. Maybe like 25 vocab. I haven't counted the vocabs, but count the vocabs and then add about 10 slides to it. Okay, it'll be up Thursday through Monday. One important thing, because I think it's important for us as adults to act ethically, cheating not allowed. When you guys were kids cheat and make mistakes and act stupid all the time, but you're 18 and older, so you're adults now. And when people lie or cheat and expect other people to believe them and accommodate them, I think that's really not a good thing anymore. I think it's a little bit too common. So for me, part of college is having professional ethics because that gives you dignity and a backbone. So I disable the pages late Wednesday night. And by that, I mean, the quizzes come down, all the pages get unpublished before the test so that, somebody can't have their phone on and be looking it up on their phone. So you should know that I will announce when the test will go up, but you should know that the night before I disable the pages, but it'll be like midnight. Okay. So it won't be like 5 p.m. or anything. Okay. So pages will be disabled for that. Okay, if you have accommodations, email me and I can work with you. So, any more questions?
So that means that, like, for example,